Before we dive in, a quick heads up. Quantum Journey's online 4-week live immersive healing ancestral, past life, and family trauma workshop is almost here, and seats are disappearing fast. This is for the spiritually sensitive, feeling the pull to break old patterns and reclaim your energy. February 19th, 2026 is your moment. Don't wait. Secure your spot now at www.quantumjourneygo.com/workshops. Now, let's get into the episode.
Today we have with us Olivia Magdalena, a Mary Magdalene priestess and devotee.
Welcome to the Mystical Mermaid Lounge podcast, a space where all spiritual seekers are honored and celebrated. This podcast was born from the journeys of your hosts, who have each faced her own dark night of the soul, but they've emerged with an unshakable belief in divine connection, cosmic inspiration, and her true life's calling. Join us on a journey of personal growth, transformation, and magical self-discovery. Your first co-host is Chloe Brown, a gifted intuitive empath and shadow work life coach. Your second co-host is Keone Starr, an intuitive energy worker and acclaimed past life regressionist. The Mystical Mermaid Lounge podcast starts now.
Excited. Yes. Olivia is a Magdalene priestess, psychic intuitive, and somatic storyteller. Initiated through the Rose lineage of Mary Magdalene, she has a master's degree in English literature from NYU. She is an RYT 200, and for those of us who did not know, that is a yoga teacher, and has studied somatic and energetic healing for over a decade. How is that possible? You are so young.
32. So, I've had some time.
She started when she was 10. I knew it.
My mom is a Pisces, so, she started me young.
Me too. Just saying. I love it. Olivia has supported hundreds of women and femmes in their individual and collective healing journey. As a true Scorpio, Olivia's healing ethos is deeply rooted in alchemy. She helps you to make sense of divine and esoteric guidance in our human body. Her work embraces the shadow and the light in equal measure, and forever finding the magic in the mundane and guiding you home with your unique spiritual authority. Olivia is an avid bookworm, enthusiastic storyteller, and a general human lover. What about animals?
I love animals too. Yeah.
I had to ask.
Of course.
Yes. So we're just going to dive right into it if you're good with that. And I would love to know if you wouldn't mind sharing with us a little bit about your personal journey and what called you to walk the path of the Magdalene priestess.
Yes. Well, I was raised Catholic. My dad was in the military and we moved around a lot. And so I kind of found myself in an array of different schools growing up, including Catholic schools and like more fundamentalist Christian schools, like elementary school wise, just because of like where we were in the districts and all these different things. So I grew up like in the church, and I was always this I now recognize like a super spiritual person, a super devout person. And as I got older, and this kind of happened alongside my parents as well, like we just stopped being able to reconcile like a lot of what we felt was God, love, universe with a lot of what like the institution of the church was perpetuating. And so by the time I got to college, I had really just stepped away. And for many years, I just was like, I'm not doing any of this. And then in 2017, I moved to New York for graduate school, and kind of around that time just started to play in the spiritual realm, like read A Course in Miracles and like was reading some like Brene Brown and just kind of started in that like funnel. And then my grandfather, who I was super, super close with, passed away very unexpectedly in 2017. He was very healthy, and just it was kind of one of those like overnight moments. And it was really hard. And from the moment that he passed, he made it so known to me that he had not gone anywhere, and was just like giving me these signs and these synchronicities, and like literally like blasted open my psychic abilities that I had always had, but I hadn't really known that that's what they were. And it was also around that time that I was working at this like tech job in New York and would listen to audiobooks on my walk to work. And there was this one that popped up called Mary Magdalene Revealed. And I don't even remember that much. I just remember seeing red, and I remember seeing Mary Magdalene. And I was like, oh, I always liked her. So I just like hit download. And like when I tell you that it literally has altered like the course of my life and like the chemistry in my body, it was this, I won't even call it an activation. It was like a reclamation. And the book, Mary Magdalene Revealed by Megan Watterson, I point people to all of the time. Megan's a feminist theologian and Harvard and Columbia educated scholar who really sits at the intersection of lived experience, feminist theology, and like, how do we reconcile what was buried and hidden and erased by the institution of the church with like what was actually always supposed to be there and what's been hidden in plain sight the entire time. So I read that and reread it, like my copy's somewhere. It's like it tattered, like with notes in the margins, like
Yes.
And from there, I happened to just then stumble on now a really good friend of mine who was doing a Mary Magdalene priestess initiation. And I was like, I don't know what that is, but I'm saying yes. And I did that. And it just really was just like from there, it's all just unfolded in this really, and it's really also like pulled me back to that little girl who like loved her rosary and who loved to pray and who felt this thing when I was a little girl in church. And like, that was what I was always feeling. Like, this is what I was always feeling. So it's been this really cool, then further step to help support people in their deconstruction journeys and in their reclamation journeys, and illuminating, like being one of many voices that's hoping to help illuminate what has been hidden from us and reclaiming it to the best of our ability. Oh,
I love that. That is so cool. And Keone and I have heard a lot of our past guests, very similar connectivity from a younger age and feeling that they just felt that magic in the church. And they were, as they were growing older, maybe for one reason or another, stepped away. And it was that connection and that sense of magic. I mean, everybody calls it something different, but that is what lured them into this, where they're at now.
Yeah. Our inner child knows and recognizes truth. And so it's really cool to like return to that imprint as an adult and to like know what you know of the world, and then to be like, there was truth in that too. Like, how can I find my own way back to what like our inner children recognized?
It's so amazing that you said that. First of all, we have all three water signs on this show.
Oh, well, of course, it's the Mermaid Lounge. We have to have all of the water signs.
So yes, you are completing us. So thank you.
Love it.
Yes, so I have to recognize that first. But secondarily, I love that you bring up the inner child recognizing the truth, because I remember being a child and being in church, and it wasn't all the dogma and the fear and this is the church that I had gone to. I'm not, generalizing. It wasn't the dogma. It wasn't the fear. It wasn't, you're a sinner. I was a little kid running through the hallways, couldn't wait to get to choir practice.
Yeah.
Right. Or to play the handbells, because that was how I felt. I think most spiritually aligned was when we were communing with our voices and our bodies in that way. And I have a twin sister, so we were always singing duets, and people loved how family voices blend, that type of thing. And so it was interesting when you mentioned that, because as I got older, that magic started to leach out of those experiences. The more that I got stuck in the dogma, the more I felt restricted, as opposed to being that child who just felt alive and happy and at one with people and just the opportunity. It's weird. I felt opportunity in church as a little kid. So thank you for saying that.
I was just going to add first, I love that you say that, both of you. I think it's interesting because lately I've heard a lot of chatter about Mary Magdalene and the inner child. And even somebody who's been on this path for, a number of years, when somebody says to honor your inner child, I'm the first one to panic and be like, but I don't know what that means. I don't know. I don't know what she looks like. I don't know. So I do enjoy that you bring that up, because the more that we are just trying to be our better, more authentic selves, for me, spontaneously, that's when my inner child comes out and I'm like, oh, there she is.
Yeah. And it's like that healing and that reclamation that I find can be so like fierce and ferocious, and like, this is what was hidden from us, and this is the sacred rage, right? I find again and again that voice is also what allows for my inner child to poke her head back out again. And my inner teenager too, right? It's like the protection and the reclamation, and also a reminder that like what is ancient and holy and true, we knew always, and we were conditioned out of that knowing and like out of that trusting. But she didn't go anywhere, right? She's just been like, whenever you're ready, I'm still here. Let me know. And so yeah, it can be a really, really profound recognition, I think.
That was beautiful. I do appreciate you sharing that with us. Transitioning a smidgen, for those who may not be familiar, from your perspective at least, what does it mean to be a Magdalene priestess? What does that encompass, and how do you honor that? I mean, your grace that you bring to us, you can feel it, but for those who are not on this call, could you articulate it a little for them as well, please?
Oh, this is like one of my favorite questions, and it's one that I've been asked so many times, and every time the answer feels a little bit different, and it's evolved as I've evolved. I tend to talk a lot about this on the internet, which was never anything I planned, but 3 years ago, I just made a TikTok on Mary Magdalene's feast day, and it kind of exploded, and I've just been in these conversations ever since, and I'm like, I didn't wake up when, it just kind of happened that way. And so it's a question I get all the time. And there are a couple pieces about it for me. I think at the top, it really is an invitation to devotion. And when you are connecting with Mary Magdalene, you are being invited to deepen your connection with your humanity and with the sacredness that lives within your humanity. Like in the Lost Gospel of Mary Magdalene, which is one of the kind of pieces that we'll turn to, they speak about this process of becoming a true human being, fully human and fully divine. And so as a Magdalene priestess, I have lovingly and a little bit, I don't know, cheekily perhaps, and sometimes being a little angrily claim the title of priestess, because growing up in Catholicism, I was taught there was no such thing as a priestess. I was taught that it was only the priests and it was only the men, and it was their sacred, holy succession. And they were the only ones who could be spiritually in charge. And I know in the Episcopal tradition, they do have female priests, but they're still priests. And there's something about the archetype of the priestess. I work a lot in the Rider-Waite lineage of the tarot, and that priestess is the guardian of the subconscious and the guardian of the sacred holy secrets, and also a teacher. And so I think for me, claiming the title of priestess is this dance between being well, I can be a priestess if I want to be, and I believe that anybody can be, and it isn't something to take lightly. It's not doctrinal or dogmatic, but when you're okay, yeah, I'm going to pick this spiritual path, and everybody's well, okay, then the universe is great, let's go through it. You're going to have to sit with your shadow. You're going to have to sit in intimacy with not only what was externally buried and hidden, at least when it comes to the Magdalene lineage, right? Of all the things about her that were mistold by the church and the books that were hidden, but also what we've hidden within ourselves. And what are you not sitting within yourself? And so it's this commitment to sitting with your own shit and really being open to that process of alchemy and of self-transformation and of radical responsibility. And also, where are the barriers that I have put up, whether through conditioning or through my own just humanity of denying myself? Where do I abandon myself, and how is my life a devotion to returning to my truest self? And then there's an element of teaching. There's an element of sharing. There's an element of, at least in the way it's worked for me, it's unveiled itself for me, is going on podcasts and making videos and like teaching and training and helping support people in their connection with the Magdalene, which is ultimately a connection with yourself.
Olivia, one of the things that you mentioned just super briefly, but is actually the point behind this Magdalene lineage, is the fact that she was erased from the Gospels, except for the spin, if you will, that was placed on her, which is not, at least for any of us that have read outside of what is considered the Bible at this point, which is not necessarily the truth. Mm-hmm. And so how do you, having been raised Catholic, how do you make that adjustment in your mind? Was it easy for you to say, I knew it. I knew this wasn't the whole truth. I knew that, and I'm not picking on the Catholic Church, it's power, right? So when people get in power, they want to hold on to it, regardless of what you label it as. So I knew they wanted to peel back the powerful layers of some of these folks so that we couldn't see it or feel it or integrate it for ourselves. But how did you make that shift? Was it easy for you?
Oh, it was like lightning bolts. I read, and I was like reading Mary Magdalene Revealed, and I was like, oh, that's what I had been picking up on that's who I'd been talking to. That's what was missing. I remember sitting, this was right when that Mary Magdalene Revealed came out, and she happened to be giving a book talk. Megan, who wrote it, it was like right when it came out, and it was literally right around the corner from where I worked. This was like one of those moments. It was like ding, 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 ding. And we were sitting on the floor of a yoga studio, and she was, and I raised my hand and I was like, I can't begin to explain. And it was this room full of people. And it's this like recognition that I see now over and over again of people going, I knew it. I knew that there was something. And not even that I was sitting, listening, being like, they're hiding something from me, but it was just like something wasn't adding up. And what's also really interesting to me, at least, is that even though her story was mistold, she still is one of the central figures of the Christian story. The resurrection does not happen without her. And I forgot to say this when we were talking about the priestess question, but there are so many, both within kind of like biblical understanding and outside of it, she is very much coded to be a priestess. Like the title Mary was often, there's like speculation about it meaning priestess. And so that's why we have the three Marys, Mary Magdalene, Mary of Nazareth, and Mary of Salome. So like, was Mary even her first name, or was it a title? And she was the keeper of, like, she was at the burial and the resurrection, presumably performing priestess rites as a potentially, this is when it gets into that murky area, but her story.
Go murky, girl. Go murky.
Oh, okay. We're mermaids. We can be murky. But that there is this connection between her story and Jesus and the story of the Egyptian god Osiris and the Egyptian goddess Isis. And so there's a lot of speculation and honestly like various different kinds of confirmation within Magdalene circles that she was a priestess of Isis, and they were the death workers and the burial workers. There's the whole story of her anointing Jesus in the canonical Bible with a spikenard, and that's like her preparing his body for like the sacred anointing of burial and death. And her being there at the resurrection mirrors Isis, the Egyptian goddess, resurrecting her lover, Osiris, the sun god, who was split into 7 pieces, right? So Mary Magdalene resurrects the son of God. Isis resurrects the sun god, right? Like you can see how there's this parallel that's really fascinating. And so even though so much of her story we'll never know, there's so much that we do know. And there's so much that lightning bolt moment that I see happen in so many people, myself included, to me personifies how she very much kind of embodies the Tower card. The tarot always finds its way to these talks, but in ancient Aramaic, Magdalene translates to tower. And in the Tower card in the tarot, right, it's a great disruptor. It's like before and after. I will often say in my life, there's before Mary Magdalene, there's after. So to answer your question, it was like, oh, holy hell yes. I didn't know, but I knew. And that's also why it's really this recognition, reclamation, remembering process, as opposed to like learning something new. I feel like, oh, this is what should have been next to this.
Interesting. That is, to go back a little bit, that is how I did find you, was the social medias and some of the things that you said or put out there, I should say. It wasn't necessarily what you said. It was the vulnerability behind them. And I remember the first time I came across one of your pages, I remember thinking, Mary Magdalene, isn't that Christianity? Like that's really, truly my first thought. It's ignorant and blunt as that is.
No, I don't think at all.
So then throughout the time I've been watching your things, and I think maybe even within the last 24 hours, one of them that you posted really, multiple of them, should I say, really bring this sense of like, yeah, I knew that. But then my brain is like, wait, you don't know anything. You just literally said, isn't that do you know what I'm saying? So it's that inner instant, I don't know. But one of them that I wanted to point out, and girl, you are gorgeous.
Thank you.
But you put in here like, reclaiming the truth of Mary Magdalene, calling out dangerous New Age rhetoric, reminding you of your spiritual authority, challenging the absolutist doctrines of the most organized Christian institutions, quoting, I am the whore and the holy woman on a daily. And I think the reason why I'm bringing this up is because it's very vulnerable, but it's so powerful in a way that is deeper than I can articulate in words. It's like a soul remembrance, like what you're saying, but also the brain is going, but do you really know any of this? So I love that you're reaching out, and I love that you're sharing this information, because every little bit of it, I think, is just planting seeds for the next person to go in and dive in. And I know I wrote the Mary Magdalene Revealed by Megan, all the information down, and I'll be reading that. So I'm very grateful that you're sharing all of this information with us. Because it feels like you know so much, would it be appropriate to ask you how you feel that the Magdalene lineage connects to the divine feminine, and how we all can embody that type of energy in our everyday lives?
Yes. And you really just described what I see as the deepest and perhaps simplest way that the divine feminine makes herself known, themselves known, right, to us. It's through remembering, and it's through that articulation that you just described, right, of my body knows this and my heart knows this. And my brain is like, you don't know anything. That dance, I mean, I feel that. I feel that all the time. And it can be amplified, right? When you're doing it very publicly and you get people like, you don't know what you're talking about. And I'm like, okay, are you right? Like there is that question. And what I think I find about the Magdalene specifically, and the way that her archetype sits within the kind of like goddess, divine feminine space, I really see her in many ways as one, a divine counterpart. So her and Yeshua, her and Jesus are divine counterparts in the same way that, again, Isis and Osiris, Hades and Persephone, like their stories are inherently interwoven, and being with one doesn't mean having to be with the other. I know people who are devotees of Persephone who are like, yeah, that's like Hades is like this guy and he's around, but like I don't really, like that's not who I feel devoted to. I know a lot of people who like go through the Magdalene to reclaim their relationship with Jesus. They like go through the unlearning of all of the things, all of the dogma, and they find their way to like the Christ they know by heart, as Megan Watterson would say, like that they recognize. And they really, for me, it actually kind of went the opposite, because I like did a lot of like A Course in Miracles, which is kind of like a recoding of the Christ, and then I found my way to the Magdalene. And I think also the Magdalene asks for us to, in my experience, understand the language that our body speaks. And because if the core tenet is that to be human is to be holy, and we are here to be in our bodies and to have a whole human experience, it means that ritual is, sure, you want to dance naked under the moonlight, like I will do that with you. You want to pilgrimage to Mary Magdalene's cave in the south of France with me, like I will do that. I will do the big ritual with you. I love a big ritual, right? I'm a Scorpio. I'm like, yes, let's like get dark and dirty and like, and like the ritual of making your coffee and of going to your therapy appointment, and of taking your medication, and of making the video, we're having the challenging conversation, and of all of those pieces of like cursing somebody out in traffic and then being like, oh God, they deserved it kind of, but I really wish I hadn't said that, right? Like that is what it is to me to be in the divine feminine. And it is less about trying to chase knowledge outside of me. And it is more about how can I learn the language that my body has been speaking to me my whole entire life, that I ignore, that I mean, right, we live in a society that pulls us out of our bodies all the time. And many psychic and spiritual teachings, through no particular fault, I think, are also encouraging us to like use your third eye, use your crown, use your throat. I love those. I'm all for those. And we have intuition in our sacral and in our root and in our body. Like we have like epigenetic and physiological memory, right? And that's that part of you that you hear the Magdalene, you're like, oh, I knew that. Because it's not just her. She's just one of many ways that this can find people, right? So to me, it's that like the magic in the mundane and in the everyday, and like seeing your spiritual practice not as something that's trying to pull you out of your body, but as something that's asking you to be like so radically honest with your humanity, because you're here to experience what it means to be a true human being, as the Gospel of Mary would call it. So I think that kind of went circular, but I hope that answered your question.
Absolutely. That was a wonderful journey and answer. I think it really helps all of us understand what you're saying and what you mean. Mm-hmm. Do you feel like the Magdalene energy is resurfacing? And if so, could you talk about that, and what role do you think that this could or is, or maybe isn't, your perspective, I mean, playing a role on our collective awakening, or is it?
I think so. I think it's becoming more open, perhaps, because a lot of what I'm sharing in terms of like the theological history of the Lost Gospel of Mary and all these different things, theologians have known for a really long time. This isn't like if somebody went to like theology school 25, 30 years ago, they'd be like, yeah, this isn't, especially if the more secular, the more like religious they were, the more they may not see it that way, but the more secular, like, so there's this thing that happens, I think, I think we can look back on not just Mary and like Jesus's story, but there are different, and a lot of these come from Mary Magdalene Revealed and me like leaning on some of the things she illuminates, but like Joan of Arc and like Teresa of Avila and Marguerite Porete, who were all these like really strong feminine voices that came out at times that told stories that they were, at least Marguerite and Joan, were ultimately martyred for. But they spoke to spiritual authority of within, right? Joan of Arc, like, I am not afraid, I'm born to do this. She's leading an army because the angels came to her and said that was what she needed to do, right? Marguerite Porete wrote, I can't remember the year that she was alive, but she wasn't quite a saint. She was a mystic. And she wrote this book that basically was saying, God lives within us. Love is God. We are love. And the church martyred her for it and then sainted her many years later. Right. Yeah, exactly. So this idea that our humanity is holy, this idea that there's nothing in between us and God, higher power of our own understanding, is not a new idea. And it's one that, especially in the West and especially under like the legacy of the Roman Empire, is always kind of like unveiling and then hiding again, and then unveiling and then hiding again. We are definitely at a moment in time where I do think it's interesting, even in the past 4 years, seeing how many more people are talking about Mary Magdalene and how many people have been fascinated, at least when I've been speaking about it. And also we have this incredible rise in Christian nationalism. Absolutely. And I do think that those two things are not a coincidence.
And I was going to ask you about that because those would be the folks, not the historical theologians, but those would be the folks who would find this information and or perspective to be quite threatening.
Oh, yes.
Because the intercessor, the intercession, especially of a male figure as the head of the household, as the connection to the church, and then the priest or fundamentalist minister, being the route that we're able to have a divine connection, is coming back in that realm in full force.
Yes. Oh, absolutely. And there is this amplification of you don't know, and you have to look outside of yourself. You have to look to ChatGPT. You have to look to your past. You have to look anywhere but inside of you. And so I do think it is absolutely the response, and has been happening for a while. Because I also have this interesting phenomenon where now that I've been doing this, I think for long enough, publicly enough, that I'll have people who will come to me and be like, I found you 3 years ago. And I've been on like deconstructing ever since, right? Megan Watterson wrote a book that I picked up in 2018 or 2019, whatever year that was. And it altered the course of my life, right? Like I was actually last week literally went There's a cave in the south of France that's believed where Mary Magdalene lived out the end of her life. And so I went and did a whole hike and like did a whole thing with a friend of mine. And we're at the top of this mountain and we're walking from point A to point B. And I looked at my friend and I was like, this is why they ban books. Because I read one book and I am now at the top of this mountain in the south of France and I'm planning a pilgrimage next year to bring people here so that we can be in this energy. Like this, I was like, I literally was just like, this is why they ban books. And we like kind of laughed about it, but I was like, also, this is, it's not a coincidence. And something that I take a lot of comfort in when it's all so horrific, because it is so horrific, is that Mary Magdalene's story gives us an anchor. Like none of this is new. It's uniquely new in our cultural context and in the technology and all of these things. But the tools of oppression are not new. They were the ones that Jesus and Mary Magdalene were organizing against and why he was put on the cross. So in some ways, it feels like there's this blueprint. And again, not to, of course, in any way minimize what we are very really looking at. And that's also where like my yoga practice comes in and like studying things like the Bhagavad Gita and like these ancient texts that have existed long before us and will exist long after we're gone. Like that cave I went to, I'm like, this cave will be here. I am like a little blip. And it's giving me so much to navigate what feels so overwhelmingly insurmountable. There are answers and they live within us. And that's why they're distracting us from them.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. And that's, I think, part of where this question came from, because I don't know if it was based from curiosity or hopefulness, to be honest with you. Because I'm very hopeful that I can say that in my lifetime, connecting the mind and my body has been a struggle to find that balance. I also do shadow work, life coaching, and ironically enough, the name of my company is Inner Alchemy, because that's what it feels like, is trying to find that. You touched base on it so well, is that just that balance and understanding, yet compassion without a divide. And I don't know if that's specific to the Magdalene following, but I do find that common thread. I remember listening to Deb Bowen talk about the Magdalene years ago, and I, had that, oh, this is Christian. Oh, like trauma reaction. And so it's not lost on me that now that we're in such a more severe state of the world, rather the last time she brought it up, we were in a pretty severe state of the world, and now it's coming up again. And so that synchronicity, I think, is playing a very hopeful role that this could help bring some balance and equality and some light like we need.
Yeah, and it's that familiarity with the light and the shadow, right, in equal measure, right? Because it'd be like a facilitator, that shadow work, that even just the resurrection, like if we just look at that as like an archetypal framework, right, of like the death, the waiting, the rising, right, that they all, that essence of the phoenix. And I think like anything too, and this would just be my offering for anybody who's like Magdalene super interested. It's also like important to know that it's not infallible, just like no other spiritual practice is not infallible. Like with the rise of more awareness around Magdalene, there's also, I see some stuff out that I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, it's very like, we are the like sacred Magdalene bloodline. And this is I'm just like, just be aware that you're being grounded in humanness. If something's taking you out of your humanness, if something is parroting rapture rhetoric, if something is setting up any kind of like hierarchy, it's not the Magdalene, it's something else. So so it's like anything. It's like as I'm watching it expand, I'm like, oh, that's a little sticky over there, right? Like I don't want to talk about the political. I'm like, you can't really be a devotee of Mary Magdalene and not be involved in the political world. Like the two just don't, when whatever that means for you, but like they don't. She's an archetype that's entrenched in
Spiritual
that element.
Authority. Yes.
Yeah, spiritual authority and the political as inherently spiritual and the spiritual as inherently political.
Absolutely. And the taking on of specific female only epithets such as whore, such as prostitute. No man is called those things, no matter how hoish they could happen to be, right?
Yes.
So the fact that you can own that part of yourself that is fully somatic in its manifestation, and to say that's just part of being a female, that is just part of feminine, in our case, divinity, is saying no to the Christian nationalist and saying, no, this is okay. This is how we were created. And to enjoy your body or to have a somatic manifestation, however that plays out, and not to be suppressed because we're female is the point of this.
Well, and what I love that you highlighted is the interwovenness of like the holy whore and this idea of like our sexual expression is sacred. And also one of the things that happened is in I think 4th or 5th century, Pope Gregory I gave his homily 33, which is where he incorrectly conflated Mary Magdalene with another figure in the New Testament. And that's where she kind of got labeled as the penitent prostitute, right? And that's where this comes from. But what I think is interesting is that's like kind of its own story. But what's interesting about it is that the Egyptian, the Isis priestesses were death and sex magic practitioners. Isis resurrects Osiris, bringing 7 pieces together, and then it's like a sex magic ritual that resurrects him and brings him back to life. So there was also an inherent element of like sex and like prostitution is also one of the oldest, and in some areas of the world what was considered like a sacred vocation. And so it's also really interesting because if we expand it beyond, oh, Mary Magdalene was mislaid a prostitute, it's kind of like she doesn't care. I mean, not to speak for it, but like that's not the vilifying of sex work doesn't do anything for anyone, right? But what it does illuminate, at least in my view, is this funneling of the priestess work and the holiness of sex as a ritualistic thing that we can claim and we can use, and making that bad, while also peeling Jesus and Mary of Nazareth from their humanness, right? The untouched virgin as Mary of Nazareth, and Jesus as being somehow 100% human, 100% divine, but never having had sex. Like the immaculate conception. They happen together. Right. It's like exactly, as opposed to the virgin being the woman unto herself, as being someone who chose, like for all we know, Mary of Nazareth was also a priestess who it was just a different world. And there's so much we don't know, but what we do know is that men in power who wanted to make the early Christian movement, which was this deeply revolutionary, radical, multiple perspective, living, breathing thing, a tool of empire. And so in order to do that, they strip Mary Magdalene of her divinity. They strip Mary of Nazareth and Jesus from their, whichever flip way it is. And again, I'm very much borrowing from Megan Watterson with that. But like, and we see it's an inversion of what could be the whole picture.
I agree with that 100%. And just think let me say it this way. I'm fully aware that a lot of the heavy editing of the Bible also touched a lot of the male figures and their actual divinity and the lack of need for an intercessor. So I'm fully aware of that. But did they take their character down to less than even occur? That is not the case. And so it's hurtful to see that happen in history, but it also tells us just how very powerful that individual or that figure was in history, that they had to be stripped of their power just in and of themselves in existence.
Yeah. I think even in our modern world, we see that play out in our criminal and judicial system still, right? The different genders, and a woman who does the same crime as a man, they'll serve significant more time because, as a woman, shouldn't we be more empathetic and more understanding and more in tune on the criminal level is where it's looked at. But then on a societal level, it's like, wait, no, you're just a woman who's having PMS. So it's like this super off balance scale that is just very mixed messages for us. So I just wanted to add, I see that it's still playing out.
Yeah. It's nothing new and it's so painful still, right? It's like that duality of it's like, it's not new. And in some ways it's comforting. In some ways it's just like so infuriating, I think.
Yeah, you're so right there. One of the things you kind of mentioned, go ahead. Do you have something you wanted to say, Keone?
At some point, I want to talk about this somatic storytelling, but it doesn't have to happen right at this moment.
Real quick, this question ties in with what something you had just said. And then, yes, I do want to go into that very next if we can. For those who are feeling called to the path of the Magdalene, what simple practices or rituals would you recommend for them? Or I guess for me, the takeaway was just start reading and following what feels correct. So without me putting words in your mouth, what would you suggest for any listener who's feeling resonance with what you're saying?
So there is an element of reclamation, re-education that I do think, not always, but more often than not, comes with connecting with Mary Magdalene. I often dub her like our patroness of the deconstructing, because she's not exclusively for people who have left some kind of organized religion or group in Christianity, and there just tend to be a lot of us. And so I have my own podcast, Walk of the Magdalene, that's available on all platforms. I have a Substack that has a list. It's the Mary Magdalene Resource Hub is what I've called it. And it has a list of all kinds of resources. So if you're somebody who wants to listen to a podcast and that's really helpful for you, I've linked mine. If you love to read and you want to read some of the various books or you work with oracle cards, I've linked some of like the main ones that I tend to go to. I also have like a plethora of workshops that I've done over the years that talk and teach on all of these things. And so that's where I tend to point people, myself, and there are many others, especially on TikTok, who are educating and sharing regularly about Mary Magdalene. So I would just, depending on how you learn and what's of interest to you, the knowledge gathering is often where we start. It's not a requirement, but it's its own kind of activation. It doesn't have to be fancy. It can be like me listening to Mary Magdalene Revealed on my walk to work every morning. And that's it. That's all I did, quote unquote, but that's all I did for a good 6 months. And then from there, it really depends on where you feel pulled. But I say simple is best.
I love that. That feels so real and tangible, right? Because first of all, we're always searching with our thumbs. Oh, resources. That's so hard sometimes to find reputable resources. So while you were talking, sure enough, I just pulled up your social media just to see how easy it was. And you have all of Mary Magdalene Resource Hub, direct link, your Substack, everything. So that is phenomenal. I love that. And I'm sad I didn't realize I would have listened to some of your podcast episodes before we had you on. Sorry about
it's
that.
fine. Don't apologize. No,
but
it's
I'm
so
excited
fun.
to learn.
Yeah, it's a lot of this. It's a lot of this.
Cool. That is exciting.
Yeah.
So to transition a little bit, because yes,
Sure.
when we were going through your bio, I thought, ooh, somatic storyteller. That sounds divine. Although I'll be honest, I have no idea what that means. So I'm just going to turn it over to you so you can educate me a little and our listeners.
Yes. So somatic storyteller came from a group that I was helping facilitate a couple years ago. And I was helping my friend Giselle Allen, who's an incredible coach for women and femmes of color who are looking for just like really brilliant coaching work. And she was my mentor for a long time. And she's incredible. And I love her. And I was in sessions and we were kind of trying to name what I do when we're like in session together, because I'm not a coach. And I say that so lovingly. I'm so grateful for every coach I've ever had. I'm not one. And that's what she was helping me realize. She was like, well, this is coaching. And that's not what you're doing. What you're doing is beautiful and amazing, but it's not coaching. And I was like, okay. And so just throughout like our time together and like the various people that like I was supporting in facilitation, we came to this title of somatic storyteller. And it really is this dance between asking and translating the language that our body speaks. So if we were like in a session together and you were sharing similar to what you were sharing earlier about like, I feel this disconnect between my body and my mind and what I know in my heart and what I hear in my mind. And I'd be like, okay, it's a little, and I'm not a therapist, so I don't, but it's like, if you had to compare, it'd be a little like internal family systems meets like somatic work. I have a lot of somatic practitioner training. So it like sits somewhere in that, but it's really trying to like take the divided pieces of self and through like communicating with the language of our bodies, which is often turning off the mind as much as we can and just being like, what is this sensation and where is it and why is it and how do I understand, and then how do I speak it out loud? Because there's something about, right, we know when we are creating the conditions for our bodies to be ready to process the like hidden trauma or buried trauma, it comes out in ways that we don't understand. And we're not always supposed to understand with our logical mind. And I find there is a lot of power in that expression, whether it's through movement, whether it's through tears, whether it's through writing a letter and cursing out the person who harmed you, right? Like whatever, whatever that is. And also I'm a dancer. I'm a mover. I am constantly the behest of my mind, and I am constantly working to not be. And there are some things that we cannot speak, but we can tell the story of through movement. And that movement can be small or it can be big. And so I would say that's kind of the sweeping general of the very much self-coined, made-up somatic storyteller.
I love that, though. Everybody, let me rephrase, I can't speak for others. I feel like there's a piece of that can speak to anyone listening, whether it's their jam or they're not, whether it is or isn't. There's something in there that we can all resonate with. And it's so funny because I was going to add dance, but I didn't want to cut you.
Yes, dance always. And a reclamation with dance. I grew up as a dancer. I thought I was going to be a professional dancer, and then it all flew away. And then my origin of somatic practice work was in the college that I went to University of Virginia, and there was a dance minor program that I didn't even know was there, and I just kind of stumbled on it. But the movement practices that we were taught, called Laban movement analysis, and it's this very somatic, body-based type of like modern dance that was unlike anything that I had ever experienced before, because it wasn't asking for me to perform. It was asking me to be honest as a choreographer and as a dancer. And the tools that I learned in that when I was then in somatic trainings outside of the dance, I was like, oh, I've been doing this for a long, I just didn't know that's what I was doing, but that's what I was doing.
Because
So,
that focus is different, right? When you're performing, it's for the audience. It's a translation of what you want them to feel.
Right.
But if you're doing this for authenticity and speaking your truth, then your movement is for a different purpose. And I'm seeing so many parallels here, because we're talking water signs being fluid, being very feminine, being that intuitive, psychic, that thread that runs through the water signs, but then also through the somatic receptivity of feeling in our bodies, as opposed to having to act outward or to constantly be in activity. I find that divine feminine thread runs through that whole somatic core. And your storytelling also being one of just a very intuitive, I can see why you wouldn't want to use the term coach, but it does have a feeling of guidance, right? It's just using the story as opposed to a directive. And it all feels very feminine to me. I love that.
Yes. It's very scorpionic. And it's also something that I have really, it's hard for me to do for myself. So
What
it's
do you
one of those
mean?
I hold people in the space because it also helps me remember how to do it in my own body.
Yeah. Okay.
You know what I mean? Like,
Okay.
it's almost like a teach what we need to learn type
Yeah.
of thing.
Yeah.
And I'm so grateful for the people who let me do it in space with them, because it helps me be in that. Because I have a Virgo moon, so it's really easy for me to get stuck in the well, A plus B equals C, and this isn't logical, and this doesn't make any sense, and we need to have a system, and the system isn't being followed, and blah, 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 blah. Right? So it's really helpful to just be in and as time has gone on, it's gotten more and more. You just realize you're not doing anything, you're being.
Exactly. And that is that receptivity, that being, that just existing, that you're not out moving and making change, you are change.
Yeah.
Just that embodiment, which I just love. And I'm picturing you doing somatic storytelling in my mind. But then also the fact that you mentioned ritual and the importance of using our body in a ritualistic way just is more than just this esoteric thought process, right? It's actually embodying what the intent of that ritual movement is.
Yes.
That I just love that. And I'm thinking of my family's indigenous North American, because I look like that, don't Anyway, my mom actually grew up on the res, but
Okay.
her idea of offering is tobacco or mullein or chamomile, whatever she feels that the earth needs at that time. What do people who walk the Magdalene, what do they offer in ritual?
That's such a beautiful question. What do we offer? Roses, and
Of course you do.
and reds, like
Just going to say red wine, chocolate.
yeah, red wine, red threads. And it's very much like
I'm jumping camp, man. I'm getting out of the chamomile. That red wine and chocolate is all about who I am. Okay.
Yeah, but it really also, I find that too, what happens with the Magdalenes is that we then get connected. We're connected to her, but we also often get connected to our own like ancestral spiritual practices that were taken from so many of us, right? So I also do a lot of like hoodoo, brujeria, because I'm Afro-Latina. So I've got this whole like other lineage that I do work with, that my work with Mary Magdalene acted as like this bridge that helped, that as I healed my deconstruction and moved through my deconstruction, it allowed me to step into those other spaces as well. And what I also have actually started doing, I have started praying the rosary again. And I pray the rosary to Mary Magdalene.
I knew it. Because now it's not a forced concept.
Right. And the rosary far outdates the Catholic Church.
Absolutely. So, and not just Catholicism, but Christianity in and of itself is such a combination of Zoroastrianism, Hinduism, just pantheonic, theology in and of itself. I'm like trying to say it's all of these things pulled together. I was getting so excited when you were talking about the reincarnation of Ra, because I'm thinking like that is Christianity's story right there, but predates it by a long time. But I also love the fact that you're stepping into the Magdalene energy that allows you to also connect with your ancestral lineage and your own epigenetic experience as well. So you have the ancestral and the experiential happening at the same time. So you've become, through her or that lineage, fully well-rounded individual of all of your pieces. Can't touch you, girl.
Well, that was beautiful. Thank you. I'll go back when I feel like I'm doubting myself. I'll come back to that part of the podcast and listen to it again, because it's beautiful. No, I genuinely like, that was beautiful. Thank you. It feels very true, which is
good. Yeah, it should, because these are beautiful areas of ancestral, just innate knowledge that you're able to tap into, that is there for you, is there for your connection, which I think is wonderful. And I love that this was your conduit to it. Beautiful.
Thank you. I also keep getting this like little like light to offerings for the Magdalene. I like light a candle. She said light a candle. So
I love that.
Somebody, I don't know who, light a candle.
Right. And just the intent in that, right? You know, just the intent in bringing fire or energy to something that melts and transforms, is transmuting. I love that.
Yeah, that was very powerful. I was in such awe. I got lost in that conversation and lost my train of thought. That was a good one, though. And I think listening to you and being in this call with you, you carry this beautiful grace with you that I think I've mentioned earlier, but I would have never thought for a moment that you have moments where you doubt yourself. So I think I love that you're vulnerable enough to share that, right? Because we're all human, and sometimes we forget that and naturally compare ourselves without intentionally doing so.
Yeah. No, it's one of my favorite things actually to talk about. And it's how I check myself. And it's also how I feel like we can like start to just like deconstruct this hierarchy. And not saying that there was like but it's like if we like it really disrupts this idea that like whoever your spiritual leader is or whoever is sitting in front of you, like, I don't know, I cried about something this morning. I literally that video, I'm gonna just be so honest with you. That video that you quoted in those, I literally stared at that. I was like, I don't even know what to say. And I just was like, I just feel called to make something, and let me just like throw some things out there. Things I also feel like I've said 5,000 times. I'm like, who wants to hear me say this again? But I guess I'm gonna say it again. That's the egoic mind, right? And I'm like, no, I'm gonna post this. It's gonna feel good. And like, if it doesn't, it doesn't. But it is a constant, like, it's very real that it feels, I have more confidence now, and it feels easier for me to trust my process. And that's what I find so much that when I sit with people in this work, it's like, it doesn't go away. Your shit doesn't go away. You just learn how to deal with it differently. You learn how to recognize when it's happening. You learn how to resource yourself. You learn how to sit with it, but it doesn't go away. And as soon as I found for myself that I stopped trying to make it go away or like vilify myself or like, and again, I don't do this perfectly, but I'm like, okay, well, you're throwing a temper tantrum right now, and that's fair. And we're going to keep going, right? Or like, we're not going to do it. We're going to sit with it, or we're going to, you know, like climbing this mountain that I did this past week of like going to Mary Magdalene's cave. Like I got off I did this whole thing. I'm climbing halfway up. I'm going, whose freaking idea was this? Right? And there's these beautiful pictures of me up there just getting, but like, I was like, whose idea was this? I did this to myself. I bought a plane ticket. I got on a plane. I got on a train. I got in a rental car. I'm driving through France. I'm staying in a place I don't know. I have a friend who's going to meet me tomorrow. She and I've never met in person. We're online friends. Like, this is like, what am I doing? Also, I can find this cave. Like, I literally was like, what are we doing?
Yeah.
And of course, it was like this beautiful, incredible experience. And like, that is so real.
Yes.
You know,
I love talking about those awkward, real moments in between, right? Because I did not realize this about myself until we started this podcast, actually. And this conversation Keone and I have often is I never realized how much of a perfectionist I am. And so I'm like a bull in the china shop when I want to do something because I have to get it done. I have to get it done right. And then I'm like, oh, yes, I did it. Oh, pat on the back. And I'm like, okay, check mark. Oh, I forgot a step. Go back.
Yeah.
And in reality, what I'm really doing is setting myself up for essentially failure because I'm not allowing myself the grace and the time and the difference and the compassion. Because I heard somebody else's story and they didn't mention how they forgot the book or they couldn't write chapter or maybe their headphones died. You know, they didn't mention any of that. So that must mean I'm doing it wrong. And I think that's ultimately what brought me into the path of what I am at now is it's not a right and a wrong. It's dancing with that duality and embracing it and loving it. And to me, I feel like you labeled it so beautiful with somatic storytelling that it's just gorgeous. I love the visual and the energy that comes from it. That's gorgeous. I'm grateful you did that. And you're sharing it with all of us. That's
yes.
And somatically, how healing for you as well. I mean, the mystics have known forever ecstatic dance, the whirling dervishes. I mean, they used that somatic dance to heal themselves and to reach bliss. And you're able to do that as part of a title. I'm going to add that to mine. Somatic.
Oh my gosh.
I'm going to be like a somatic sitter person.
That's amazing.
I'm just like somatically listening to you.
But that is really powerful practice. That is a really powerful practice.
But your point, I'm making light, and obviously I'm making a joke, but your point is you're in your body, you're paying attention. And we don't do that in the Western culture. That's not where, that is not where the money is made. It's up here.
Yeah. Yeah.
I love that. I think I just want to keep her.
me too.
If you want a second, Mom.
Yes.
We need a third person because I feel like we do. No, I love it. I'm with you. Obviously, we will have all of your information in our show notes because
Mhm.
who wouldn't want to reach out to you? Hopefully, we can have you back lots.
I would love that. Yes.
That I am so on board. I think if before we move into the final message of what you'd like to share with our listeners, would you quickly just touch base and tell us how to find you? Like I said, we'll have it in the show notes, but for anybody listening and not going into the show notes, would you care to share
Yes.
that information?
So my big three are Substack, Instagram, and TikTok. And it's _ Olivia Magdalena for all three of those. Substack might be slightly different, but if you search Olivia Magdalena in Substack, I'll come up. And also if you Google Mary Magdalene Resource Hub, I'm the only one for now, knock on wood. So at least it shows up for me. You know, the SEO might just serve me my own stuff, but that'll come up on Substack. But yeah, those are the best places. And if you want to message me, I would either message me on Instagram or on Substack because my TikTok DMs get weird. So I don't really look at them. TikTok's an interesting place. So I tend to not look at those. But anyways.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
It's like the DMV. Like you feel like you're walking into the Star Wars bar.
Yeah, no, totally. And sometimes, I mean, I've had people message me who we then have this beautiful connection or we work together or like whatever. And then that's like 1 in a million. So I look at them occasionally just in case, but I've come to let them kind of be their own thing. Anyways.
I do enjoy
you gotta
TikTok.
meet people. You got to meet people where they are.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I love TikTok. Love TikTok. Wouldn't be here probably without TikTok. It really did change my life.
I will say, though, something about TikTok for me feels like the Beetlejuice waiting room, and it always has. So I love that you brought that up.
Yeah, definitely the Star Wars bar, Beetlejuice waiting room, the home. But the point is well taken because with your passion about what you're not just embodying, but what you're trying to teach people, you're getting their attention. So that's the point. And you did it.
It's so funny. A friend of mine and we were talking about TikTok. We're sometimes like, well, it's kind of like your storefront. Like you just kind of want people to like scroll by. And that's how TikTok's kind of set up, is to be a bit of a storefront situation. And if you want more, you have to find it yourself from someone. You can follow people and never see their content. And I mean, same is true on Instagram, but without getting too into the ins and outs of all the various social medias, there is a bit of that, like hopefully capturing something and then and let people go on their journeys, which is cool. Cause like I said, I'll have people be like, I found you on TikTok 3 years ago. And then we're sitting in front of each other doing a reading or something. And so it's cool. I'm very grateful to be there, but I do not check my DMs.
Well, that's good to know you're not the one who's emailing all of us saying, I never reach out, but can I give you a free reading?
Yeah, definitely not me. Definitely not me. And that'll never be the practitioner ever.
Yeah, none of our social medias will ever do that. All of the tagging that happens is attempted to promptly be removed.
Yes.
Yeah. And with that, it has been absolutely phenomenal having you. I really don't want to let you go, but it is the final question, which is really, what message would you like to leave with us and our listeners?
I will go back to my tried and true, which is to remind you that your humanity is holy, that you are not born sinful, you were born sacred, and that you are your own greatest spiritual authority, and that anything or anyone who tries to convince you to look outside of yourself is maybe not the voice to listen to. Yeah, fuck them.
Yes, get it.
That was manipulation right there. We just let her say it.
Well, you know, sometimes, especially when I'm in like a new place with like new friends, I will downplay my general feeling, which would be to say, fuck them. So you just gave me permission to say what I actually wanted to say.
No, you're right. Don't give your power away. And don't let someone convince you that you need to give your power away. Thank you, Olivia. Thank you.
That is powerful. Best thing to leave on. Thank you so much.
I'm keeping her, Mom.
I hope to see you again soon.
Oh, I
Thank
would
you
love
so
that.
much.
I would love that so much.
I'll be in your DMs.
Okay. I can't wait.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, honey.
Bye.
Thanks for diving into the depths with us today. If you enjoyed this episode, show your support at buymeacoffee.com
mystical mermaid lounge, as every little ripple helps keep the magic flowing. Would you like some more deep, soul yearning conversations? Well, then swim on over to our sister podcast, Past Lives Cafe, where Keone deep dives into those past life experiences. Also, we'd love to hear from you. Please don't forget to rate and review and drop your feedback and comments at our website, mysticalmermaidlounge.buzzsprout.com. Thank you again so much, and don't forget to catch us at the next high tide. Bye-bye.